Okay, so we were seeing this state machine in the last class, right? So people were not able to actually follow that properly. So let us go ahead and see it again. So shall we have an overview of it or go in depth as how we have seen in the last class? Shall we have an overview of what we have seen in the last class again? Okay, good. Yeah. So let's go ahead and see. So in the last class we have seen we have one start and three states, state 1, state 2 and state 3, which are intermediate state levels, and one final state which will only have incomings but no outgoing. So that is where this is called as final state. So here, so the connection to the from the start will be only one outgoing, because you cannot have the program starting with one place and not knowing where to go. So from the start, you will have only one outgoing connection, which will go to any of the state that you connect. So let us use the state 1 here. From the state 1, you can have n number of connections going to any other state. So if you see, we have three states here, state 1, state 2 and state 3, which are intermediate states. And we have interconnected all of these with one another. So if you see, my state 1 is connected to state 2, that is connected via this line. So if you see, it's starting at state 1, going to state 3. And similarly, your state 1 is connected to state 2. So that is going through this line, which is T1. And your state 1 is connected to final state, that is going through this. And next state 1 is also connected to itself. So that is using this T6. So you can control the flow of your code to go from state 1 to state 2 or state 3 or to itself using the conditions. So how do you give those conditions? To double click on this. So let us see, when does we want our code to go back to its own state. So when you double click on this, if you see, you have a string variable here, which is go to state. So if you go to your variables and see, go to state is a string. And for the string variable, the name is state1. So if the string variable has the value of state1 in it, in that case, we are telling go back to your state1. So how do you know where are you going? So if you double click here, it is coming from source is state1 and your destination is also state1. It means you are you are going back to yourself, or you are redirecting control back to the same state, right? So that is how we do for all other states, state 2, state 3 also. So if you see, from state 2, you are going back to state 1 using your T8, and going back to your state 3 using your, what is this, T10, and then back to itself using T11. So similarly for state 3 also. So where is this value getting populated, or what is the value of this in the first stage? So before we do anything, as the control directly comes to state 1, in the state 1, you are asking the user to select which state. So let us run this and see. So currently you are in state 1. So then let's say I want to go to state 3. So I'll give my state 3. And you are in state 3, right? So this message, all the message boxes are kept in each and every state, and they tell which state it goes to. So this is in state 3. And then it is asking to which state I want to go. Let me say state 2. So I'm in state 2. So now I want to go to state 1, let me say. So I'm back to state 1. Now let us go to final state. Yes, you are in your final state. So this is how you can control the flow. So currently, just because we do not have a full-time project here, that is why we are using the inputs from the user to control our flow. Is it clear? Any doubts in state machines? So let us see a real-time use case where we will be using the state machines. Okay, so let me say project underscore demo underscore state machine. In real time, it's important. Yes, it really is. It is really important in your real time. So let me say this is, so just consider you have a real time. So just consider this as a project that you are doing, is like a pet project. So you have to go to your, let me open any of the websites. Okay, let's go to Amazon.com and then search for iPhone Max. And then get this price, say $960, and then open your calculator. So let me convert this 960 into, let me say today's rate is 77 per dollar. So my output is 73,920 is the price, right? So I want to get this price printed to the user. So here we are using two applications. One is your desktop application, which is a calculator, and the other one is your web application, which is your Amazon website, right? So let's go back to our project and pull in the states. So let us come in here and let us put our sequence. Now we might need another one. So yes, my state, and I also want to have a final state. So I'll go to state 2 if everything in my state 1 goes properly. Else I will go back to my final state. Here also let's do the same. So now let me go to here and create a boolean variable, state 1 underscore status, which is a boolean. The scope is not state 2, it is my complete project. And same as here, state 2 underscore. Right. So I have created two booleans. So I'm in my state 1 currently. So let us bring in a sequence, because a sequence only can accommodate all the activities. So we are opening a browser, and then we give our website page. So I'm typing into that search box, telling I want to search for iPhone X, and I want to give an enter. Then I just want to use a click event. No, maybe I don't need a click event, because once I type an iPhone X and give an enter, okay, this is the price that I'm supposed to extract. So okay, let me click on this. I don't have a price at all here. I don't want this link. So I'm looking for a field from where I can extract the price, but looks like these are all used. I don't know why this shows. Okay, so let me try to extract the price from there. So for that I have to use get text. Click on the field. So this is going to extract my text. So let me create a variable price. And my output value is price. So now let us use a message box and see the price. Right? And now if everything goes fine here, then I'm going to assign my value as true. Status 1 value is true. Whereas in the beginning the value will be false. Right? So now if we have any problem or error here, we will not come till this page because we'll throw out an error there. So let me say if I do not have any error. So if I have an error, then equals false. So now here it is, if it is true, right? So now if this is true, then it is you are going to come here. And in this case, I'm always going to my next stage because even if it's false or true. And now here we have this sequence of, okay, for now let us save this and run and see how does it do. Okay, yes, everything looks fine here. So now here we are supposed to open our calculator. Okay, we open our calculator and then we use this. Oh, we don't even need to open a calculator because we already have that information. So here we can just use an assign and create an integer variable. Final price in INR, which is an integer. Status. So here my final price is um, price dot. I have to convert this value to integer before I do any operation because this is currently in string format. So I'll use convert dot 2 and 32 of this value, which is multiplied by say 77 rupees for today. Now let me give a message box here. Yes. or to string. So now if you see here, your state 1 is extracting the price from your Amazon website, correct? If anything goes wrong here, in that case, there is no point in multiplying this value here, right? So here in your final state, you can just have an if condition. And see if your state 2 status, if these both are properly executed, then you can say about executed successfully, execution failed. All right. So now let us go and start this. So when I run this, if you see, so let us see the proper flow now. So so it has clicked on iPhone 10 properly, so there is no problem, and it has extracted this message box or the text that is there from there, and then there was some problem, right? So if you see, we did not go into a final state. We are directly stopped. We have directly stopped our robot here, and we have an exception. Input string was not in a correct format. Why is that? Oh, do we have a dollar sign also along with the price tag? Yes, we have a dollar sign also. That is the problem. Okay, so let us fix that. Okay, so now I have just took the value which is post that dollar sign and not the dollar sign. So right, probably now we should not have an error. Oh, again. Okay, let us see what exactly is the value that we are trying to convert. Okay. Oh, we have these commas and all. Okay. So are people here clear? Why are we getting that error that it is not able to convert to integer? If anybody has any idea, just let me know. So let us now try to see if this will work fine. Okay, so now this will be resolved. Oh. So now we got the correct value, whatever we need, and we are converting that to string. So we don't need this anymore. So let us go back and run. So it says the price of iPhone X is this thing. And now we says, oh, execution failed. Why? Did I assign my, acha, okay. Because we have created the variable and have not assigned true to it. Because we created this variable boolean status 2, though everything is processed successfully, we have not assigned that value to be true. So we have to set that to be true because we have checked for both the statuses. So now let's go back. So this is the price, and robot execution is executed successfully. Correct. So now let us try to change this flow and make sure that something goes wrong. Right. So now we'll not let the browser open. We'll just close it right away. So I have closed the browser manually now. So now your system or the robot will not be able to find that selector, and the robot would fail, just as how it has failed for some error earlier. It would fail now. It is taking a while because it is trying to find that selector, whatever it is, whatever we are trying to use using type into. Correct. We are, after opening the browser, the first job that we are trying to do was using a type into to write the iPhone X into the search bar and give an enter. So now it is currently still searching for that uh, type into field so that it can type into. So it would search for some time and then it throw back an error. So if you see, it has thrown out an error. But in this case, if you see, the execution is stopping right away, it is not going to your final state. Though you have given your controls and all, anything that fails at this level, it is not taken care of, right? So to take care of such issues, we use try catches. So what is a try catch? So try catch is a way where you handle these exceptions. So let me bring this try catch somewhere here, my sequence. Take this back here. So anything you put inside a try, and if it fails, it will be handled by the catch that you're gonna give here. So if you are pretty sure what error or exception that your try block may throw, in that case you can select that specific exception. So now here we have this selector not found exception. So you can specifically do that. So now if you do this, it will only look for that specifically selector not found exception. So what will happen if you have an exception handling like this? What does it do? So we will see that. So here, because it is failing, let me give the value as false here, right? So now if you see inside my state one, oh, where did I put my try catch? Is it in state two? Oh yes. So in my state two, if anything goes wrong, it is, so I will not find this error there. Copy this. It is back in my first state. This, this back in here, and yes. So now I'm in my first state where I'm closing the browser immediately just after it is opening, and then it is trying to type into this field, right? Okay. So it is trying to type into this field. But since we are closing the browser forcefully, it will not be able to find that specific field where it has to type. So then it will throw out an error. That error is handled by your catch block. So in your catch block, you have told what kind of exception you might see. You have told that it is selector not found exception. That is exactly what you'll get. So when it comes into this catch block, you are assigning the value to false. So when it is in false, it should not go to your state 2, instead it will go to your final state. So now let us run this and see. My browser is open. I have forcefully closed it. So you have that error, right? So it is still looking for that value or that selector, whatever we are doing. So if you see earlier, we have got an error onto our page, right? So the robot execution stopped right there, and then it was throwing out a pop-up message telling it this exception has occurred. But now if you see that exception has not occurred, it has been consumed by that catch block, and the value of for that boolean has been assigned as false, and the execution is completed. So here if you see, it has not even gone to the second state where you multiply the value. So it is directly enter the final state. So just to make sure where it is going, let us put message boxes which will tell us in which state it is. So we are in state 1 here. State 2. So this is your final state, right? So now let me save this. So now we are rerunning it. Okay, we are in state 1. So where you're opening the browser. So I have force closed the browser now. So you have gone directly into your final state, right? So after final state, it says robot execution failed. It has not gone into your state 2. Correct. So now let us run without closing the browser, without force closing the browser. So in this case, it should go to your state 1 and then state 2. So now in the first state 1, it is actually executing. So we are not force closing this. So this is the price. So now we are going into state 2. We have not gone into final state as your previous way, because we have not force closed the browser, and the price of iPhone X is this. So now you've gone into final state and the robot execution is executed successfully. Any questions on how do we use this state machines? So first of all, are the state machines clear? Okay. So the state machines are the ones that will actually control the complete flow of your process. So when you have multiple steps in your process, your flow from your current step to the next step is controlled by this state machine. This is used, so state machine is used because it is really reliable in terms of your visual appearance, because it is very clear to see when the control will go from state 1 to state 2. It is directly given in the condition here. So whatever condition you give here is responsible for the control to go from source state 1 to your destination state 2. If this condition is not satisfied, then it will not go into this way. It will search for any other way from where it can go. So if this is not true, then probably this should be true. So if look for this condition, if this condition is satisfied, then the control from state 1 will go to your final state. So here just that we have only two states, state 1, state 2 and a final state. The flow is very easy. But just consider as the previous example that we have took. So where we have this state machine demo. So in many cases you will want to iterate through all the states again and again. So especially in cases where you want to process multiple records, so you will have a big flow for each record. So the same flow has to be repeated a number of times as many records as you have. In that case, the flow would be like you will go to start, then go to state 1, pick one of your records, and then check if everything is proper. If it is not proper, you can go to your final state, and after that you will again go back. Instead of going to your final state, you will go back. So can you explain the conditions once again? So these conditions are the ones that you decide. So you will tell, so in any at any given point of time, the control will go from one state to other state only if this condition is satisfied. So it is just consider it's like if else statement. So let me show you a small example. So now in this case, in our project demo, so you have your state 1, state 2 and final state, right? So let me create a small sequence and say state machine compare sequence. So you have a small sequence now. So you want to do the same thing, whatever you are doing in terms of your project demo, correct? So here, what would I do? Once I start my process, just as how I've used a try catch there, I will use a try catch here, or maybe I will just copy this and paste there. It should not be a problem. So we will have to create these variables again in this. And I guess there is also one more variable, which is the price. So this is all about your state one. So after the state one, you will want to go to your state two only if your state one is successful, correct? Without extracting the price of your iPhone 10 in your website, there is no point in going and multiplying the unknown value with 77. Am I right? So in that case, if you're not able to extract this price here, I don't want to go to my second state. I just want to end my execution. So in that case, what will I do? So I will use an if statement here. So if you are using anything else than a state machine, then the flow would usually look like this. So you would use an if statement and check for state one status. If it is state one, if the state one is true, only then I would go and use my same sequence. So this is also a string. I have to create that. What is the problem here? So what is my mistake here? Okay, price. This is an integer, right? Okay. So now if my state one status is true, then I want to execute this. If this is not true, then I will use an assign and tell my state one status is false, right? And and now I will have to use another if and check if my state one status and state two status are true. Only in that case, I can just give a solid statement telling which I do in the final state. I can just copy this complete thing. Yes. So now this and this essentially are the same. So they do the same thing. If you let me run this and show you. Okay. Let us ignore the states because I've just copy pasted that. They are coming here, but this is a sequence. There are no states here. Have your price extracted. Okay. So you have your robot execution successfully message come up because you did not have any error message. So let me remove the states. Right. So now let me run this and close the browser forcefully just as how we have done earlier. Now let me run this. So if you see, it has directly gone to your final state and said execution failed. So if you just consider these two, these both are essentially the same. But if you look at the flow here, so this is the complete flow and this is the flow here. Which one looks easier? At least to understand or go and debug or realize what is going wrong or how the flow is going. The state machine looks very simple and easy to understand, correct? So that is the reason for all projects or all real-time projects that we implement, we use state machines as the base code. So we will not use other sequences or flowcharts. State machines would be the one that we'll be using as a base code, and inside the state machines we will either invoke or use sequences to build the complete code. So just as how you have used if condition here. So if you just come back here and see, you have just used this condition. If my state one status is true, then you're executing this. Else you're going here, right? So you have only two cases here. If this, else this. Here also you're doing the same thing. So if my state one status is true, then my source, as in from state one, the control will go to my destination, which is to state two, right? So if this is true, so because this is a boolean, this is by default to true. Now I will go to my final state. When do I go to my final state? When my state one status, so this is false. In this case, this will be false. I cannot tell this to be go here, this is false, because this is not an if condition. Here I only can have a true case, only then it will allow my control to go from state one to final state. That is why what am I doing? I'm just converting my boolean to string and to lowercase and checking if it is false. If it is false, then I'm going to my final state. So this is very simple if and else condition, because I have only two. Just consider if I have one more three. In that case, I will have three conditions: if this, else if this, else if that. But that cannot be implemented in your if else condition here, because you might have need to have three conditions. You can also do that, but you need to have nested ifs. So does that make any sense as to why state machines are better and why do we use them? Okay. So any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, then probably we'll see try catches. How do we handle exceptions or errors? So we have just seen a small example while seeing this state machines itself. Anyways, we'll see an exclusive small this thing on our try catch. So we say exception handling. So just consider I have a string. Oh, sorry. Let me create a string str and assign this str as, say, my name, Sangeet. Okay. And then I'm trying to convert this to integer. So here I'm trying to convert this to convert.toInt32 will try to convert that string into an integer. Okay. So now here I'm trying to convert a string to an integer, which is not an integer at all. So this is not an integer. So your convert.toInt of this string should fail essentially. Correct. Right. So now if I run this, maybe, okay, execution ended successfully. If, okay, so let us now run this and see. We have a miss error, right? So the problem with such kind of errors showing back to the user is, see, currently we are in training or sorry development phase. We can handle these errors, click on OK and go back and see what exactly is wrong and change that. Just consider you have built a robot and you have or you have overlooked a case where you might come throw up an error, and you have given it back to the user and the user is running that. So the robot is running in some system and there is an error there and it gives a message back to the user telling that this is the error. So he being an end user, how will he even understand what this exception is, what he has to do at that instant? So we do not want any of these errors to come into the user's layer, or user should not be able to, user will not, or user should not be seeing any of such errors on his screen. Instead, we should internally handle and bring it back to the knowledge of either developers or users, telling what exactly is the error and how it is done. So how do you handle that? Because the moment you have an error, you do not have any control on your on your process, because the moment you have an error, your robot stops and give you propagates the error back to user, and anything written next to it is not being executed. So what do I do? So I will use this try catch. So try catch is the one that we will use for handling any of the errors. So now let me say I have a big code. I don't know what kind of error it might throw. So now, oh, okay. So yes, so you don't know what kind of exception you're going to get. So there is one kind of exception called system.exception, which will handle any exception that is going to appear or occur on your robot. So that is this exception, so which is system.exception, which will take in all the exceptions or accept any kind of exception. So this is like a master class for all your exceptions. It has only this system.exception. So now here all I can do is I can just for now we use a write line. So later we'll see what are these loggings and how do we log exception messages. Say error occurred and give the error message, right? So now let us run this and see. So though we have an error here, we will not stop the robot here this time. We will go forward and show user that execution has ended successfully. But we inside know that something has gone wrong. So if we run this, so if you see there is no error that has come up to our phase, right? So if you go back to your output and see, there is this error occurred log. So it says error occurred, input string was not in a correct format. So there are multiple ways how do you handle these exceptions and what information you give to the user and information you pass it on to the developers. So that depends on your business case again. So if you just consider that that is an error because of user, or so just consider user has to place a text file for the robot to run, and on some particular day because of some reason he has not placed the file. So when you run your robot, because of non-availability of the file, your robot will fail. So that is, there is no point in communicating that to the developer, because there is no role that he's going to do. So for few kind of errors, we will inform the end user telling that you are supposed to place this file and this is not there, so please place the file and rerun. So all such kind of errors whichever are responsible from the user side, so we will communicate back to them. If in case it is some development issue or any of that issues, then we will log them into logs, and then we will go back and see what exactly has gone wrong. So right, so are people comfortable with exceptions? So this system.exception, that something that we have seen is this specific exception which will handle all kind of exceptions that will occur. So let us see another one. Okay, so let us see another kind of exception. How exactly does this system.exception help us, and why is it important? So let us try to divide a number by zero. What usually will happen? So can we divide any number by zero in the first place? No, right? Which is an integer, and give a j, which is also an integer, and then say an op, which is of type integer again. So now here you are trying to I equals I by j. because you are doing a division, it is expecting that there will be a float value. That is why it is throwing out a caution message telling that this is the problem. So now if you see, so you have some randomly took one IO exception and you are trying to catch that here. So this IO exception is an input output exception. Error occurred, right? So now I have used a try catch. I have used an exception also. So now let me run this. See, though we have used a try catch, the exception is again coming back to the user, right? It is not being handled. Why is it not being handled? Because the exception type that we have here is an overflow exception, right? So this is not the exception that we have handled. We have handled only one kind of exception, that is IO exception, right? So now let us try to catch that specific exception. Go to your this and say overflow. So you have this overflow exception. And here let me use a message box telling error occurred in, okay, let me just say overflow exception occurred. It will be easy for us to understand. Overflow error occurred, right? So now I'm having two kind of exceptions. One is IO exception, one is your overflow exception. So now let me run this. So if you see, now you will not have that robot stopping, because you have handled that error. So if you see, though there are two exceptions that you are trying to handle, it directly falls into that specific kind of exception, whatever you have mentioned. Okay, so robot is successfully done. So we have got this message box. So if you see, though you have this error occurred in your IO exception, it is not going into this exception block. Instead, it is specifically going only into your overflow exception. So now let us try to create one IO exception. Delete this and user read text, and let me say open.txt, right? So let me save this and run. So this will essentially give us an, okay, it says there is one different error, aggregate exception. This should be file not existing exception if I'm not wrong. Okay, let us retry this and see. So you see, this is a new type of exception which I was not expecting. So any kind of exception that you are not sure or not aware of, so since we do not know or what all are the kind of exceptions that we might see or have in future, so to handle any kind of exception, the wildcard that we have is system.exception. So here it says some aggregate exception. So again, I have to go and create one aggregate exception and then select from there and then use. Instead of doing all this, I can simply say use one system.exception and then tell here the error is, so whatever error that we have, that will be stored in your exception message, exception dot message. So let me change this to 1 and put 1 here. So now save and run. So now if you see, though I do not know what exception that is coming up, it simply tells the error is. So it is handling any kind of exception that comes in. So system.exception is kind of a wildcard that will accept or handle any kind of exceptions in your real-time scenario. So it is always recommended to use system.exception until and unless you are very specific or very clearly know what exactly is the error that is going to come up. Is it clear? Any questions on this? Okay, cool. So with it's 10:10 now, probably we'll stop and close our session today, and we'll meet up tomorrow.